Mixtape.
Wow. Hello, people. Welcome to another episode of Panels and Bars. Yes, I'm having technical difficulties, so you're just gonna have to deal with the face of Patrick today. I might put like an emoji, something. But yeah, we're here for another episode of the show where we talk all things geeky. Be sure to like and subscribe. And this week, we are talking about the worldwide phenomenon that is Dragon Ball. I would usually start by saying, Patrick, what do you think? But Patrick has been a lifelong fan of this franchise and its characters. So I guess it's on to me.
Yeah, I'm interested in your take on Dragon Ball as somebody who's never seen it before.
So I've never seen it before. The only Dragon Ball content I've ever consumed was when I was really young. My first exposure to Dragon Ball was actually someone gave me a manga that was French. So for a long time, I always thought Dragon Ball was a French comic. That's what I thought. Um, I just knew the one they gave me was very weird. I'm pretty sure it was Z, so it was much later. You know, everyone's fully formed. There's a lot of fighting happening. It was French. I was like, this is French and it's backwards. I don't understand this. So I didn't really know much else. When I grew up, I went to a high school where every other guy was super into the Dragon Ball franchise to the point that like they'd either be recreating certain scenes during breaks or they'd be like quoting things. And I was just like, the more I hear of it, the weirder it sounds. So I've just never understood it. But I know there must be something there because obviously it's still going to this day. Every iteration has just so much discourse around it. So it was very interesting to see this because from what I've seen, and most of the media I think you see nowadays that permeates into, non DBZ culture, it all seems to feature, the adult characters fighting. So to see something this stripped back and with, Baby Goku, um, was very interesting to me. I'm going to be honest with you. I hate everything about this show.
This is always what you say. You fucking hate
I'm
everything.
sorry.
You
I'm
fucking
sorry.
despise everything. You know why? It's because there's a deep black pit where your heart should be.
Oh yeah,
Like,
100%. But that deep black pit, it has allowances for certain things, and those certain things do not include non-stop tomfoolery, buffoonish characters, perverted characters, way too many perverted characters.
yeah, I mean, there's only one. Well, I guess there's two.
No, there's
Um,
lots. There's a dragon at one point who it has transformed himself, I think, in order to kill Boomer, but then he falls in love with Boomer and fantasizes about squeezing her breasts.
well, yeah. Okay, so what I was going to say, rewatching Dragon Ball, like this whole episode's going to be what's problematic, really. Um,
Yes. Just
so
flash that up right now.
what I think the thing is that it's like I can only liken it to if like your favorite movie was like Weird Science and you watched it every year for your entire life and then you had to think about what other people would think about it if they saw it now. Like,
Yeah.
or you know how we all watched Back to the Future when we were kids and we are all
Yeah.
like, yeah, Back to the Future's great. And then you watch it I watched it with Logan a couple of years ago. Or no, maybe it was I watched it with Heath. And there was that bit where Biff's trying to rape his mum in the car park. And Heath was all like,
Yes.
is he trying to rape her? And I was like, he absolutely is, yeah. And then afterwards, he was like working for them. And I was and to a younger audience that blew his mind. Whereas I was just all like, yeah, that's what happens in Back to the Future. And similarly, I have read the first couple of volumes of Dragon Ball
Mhm.
so many times that to me they're like fucking Star Wars or something. Like I know the story better than like I did not need to watch this for this video. I did anyway, but I did not need to. And in fairness, also like the anime adaptation not ideal. There's so the Pilaf gang like inserted into all these earlier episodes. How many did you watch? How many episodes did you watch?
I got like three and a half of the way through. Oh, and so I'm just going to preface this by saying that the what we watched, I watched it with my partner, who, like you, was a massive lifelong fan. More DB rather than anything following it, but loves the original DB. Has DVDs and everything, some other media, and she loved it. Kept trying to get me to watch it. So like I said, I got 3.5 episodes in, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." But she kept watching, and was happy to relive it. But yeah, just I had to step out of the 3.5.
I watched 13.
Here's the thing.
Because
I will actually say, I can imagine if you're into this type of thing, it's a very easy thing to binge. Like I was quite impressed by the fact that all the episodes were like 20 minutes and 30 seconds long, but couldn't do it, man. Can't do it.
wow. Well, I mean, in fairness, like if your problem with it is that it's the kind of show where a small child takes off a 16-year-old girl's underwear and then she accidentally flashes her vagina at an old man, then yeah,
yes,
I mean,
and they dedicate crazy parts of the runtime to that. And to like, I get it, he's a kid, but I just don't know if we need to dedicate so much time to Goku wondering why she also doesn't have a penis. It's just too much.
Well, he's never seen another human before except for his grandpa. So also,
I think there's better ways to communicate that, you know?
Well, also, what's wild is that he's all like, hey, you know, can we share a bed? I'd like to sleep on your groin like I used to with my granddad. And then he tries to do that while she's asleep. And then he's all like, huh, it's not as comfy as granddad's groin. Mm-hmm. And then he takes her pants off to check where her penis is. And she doesn't have a penis. And he's very upset by that.
Yeah.
Did you like the bit where she pissed herself in the first episode?
There's also a lot of urination talk as well. I mean, I think one of the first times you see him, he's peeing into the sea, and he's like, "This is a good time to go fishing." Didn't see him pee. It's not necessary.
In whatever version you were watching, did you see his penis?
Several times.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, there's one point when I think he needs to transform into a fish. So before or after he does that, he's just standing out there with his penis out, you know.
Yeah, it's so there is a version of it where all the penises and naked lady bits are edited down, which I believe is the UK DVD you can buy. I watched I watched the original Japanese version, which is got all the penises and nipples in it. Yeah, so I guess what I would say, before we get into any actual discussion of it, I think what I'd like to say is that I have, as a consumer, kind of a problem with, like, so I really love anime and I watch loads of anime and it's really important to me. But Japan as a culture has a regressive, old-fashioned attitude to women. And especially there's a kind of a weird vibe where until very recently the age of consent in Japan was like 13. So there's kind of this societal idea that it's normal, in the same way that when you watch like 80s TV shows, they're full of adult men being all like, man, look at that 16-year-old girl, she's hot. There's kind of this attitude in Japan that is not repulsive and nightmarish. I think that one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older from reading perspectives from other people is that there are a lot of things in our media that Japanese people think are disgusting and weird. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we are all so uptight about our bodies that we can't have nipples on TV, but it's fine to have people getting shot in the head, is something that I've frequently heard Japanese people be all like, that's weird, isn't it? And just generally, like, the idea, because obviously in that first episode, Goku's got his penis out and he weeps a bit. And, like, one thing that I've definitely seen online is people saying, like, Japanese people saying that the idea that a child's naked body is somehow an inherently sexual thing that we should hide because it's obviously sex-based is super creepy, right? Like, and I think that when you watch a lot of media from other countries, what you start to realize is that we all have things that we're weird about and we all have things that we're weirdly blasé about because we've grown up with them. And our attitude to violence in the West is something that seems kind of an anathema to other people in other countries. But similarly, it's creepy the way that they talk about teenage girls, and it makes me uncomfortable. And some of my favorite pieces of media of all time for me are kind of tainted by that kind of stuff. And going back to Dragon Ball, I find the old man is perv, ha 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 stuff deeply
I
unsettling
mean, when
and
Bulma
upsetting.
first meets Goku and he's like, "Do you want to come over?" The first thing she says is, "Don't try anything." And
Yeah.
it is almost a funny moment in that he has no idea what she's talking about because he's literally a child, so that's not something that would enter his brain. But it's also like it doesn't need to be in the script.
Well, there's also a bit where he's all like, "I don't want to give you my Dragon Ball," and she's all like, "What if I let you touch my butt?" Um, and he's like, "I don't want to touch your dirty butt." And then she gets upset by that. But like again, like the idea that her first move would be, "Do you want to touch my butt?" Like maybe then I'll
Yeah,
get what I want
I
from it.
mean,
Is yeah, it's
Bulma in
just
general. I guess we'll get into it, but I love the fact that everyone else. I don't love the fact that I hate the fact that everyone else wants these all-powerful entities so they can take over the world or have unwieldy amounts of power, and she wants it so she can wish for a boyfriend.
yeah. I mean,
Like she basically risks her life at several points throughout these episodes against people who are potentially way more powerful than her, and she's doing this all in the hopes that she can get all these seven balls and have a boyfriend.
yeah. I mean, obviously you didn't watch through to the conclusion,
No.
but what I would say is that that is subverted somewhat by the plot.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, she meets a boyfriend along the way on the adventure.
Cool.
So that's kind of like, so yeah, that isn't. In fairness, though, recently there was in one of the recent episodes of Dragon Ball, there was a thing where Bulma was gathering the Dragon Balls, and they were all like, "Oh, what are you wishing for?" And she was all like, "I want my butt to be like 2 centimeters larger, like not noticeably larger, so people will think there's anything wrong. But if every year I gather the Dragon Balls and wish to have a slightly larger butt, then after a few years, I'll have the size butt that I want, and people won't think I've had surgery. They'll think it's grown naturally." Um,
Strategic.
yeah. In fairness, they're competing against Frieza, who is generally a genocidal maniac, and then it turns out that what he wanted them for was to wish that he was slightly taller every year. So that's fun. But yeah, no, like it's extremely silly. Like, and I personally like. I think that the attitude that a kid getting his wiener out and somebody pissing themselves is funny is completely in keeping with like the thing I think is that kids of the age that Dragon Ball was aimed at think that shit's hilarious. And I
Yeah.
don't I think it's weird that our TV shows are all like we'll never talk about butts or weeing because like little kids love that shit. They think it's the
Yeah.
funniest thing in the fucking world. So like I don't really mind that stuff so much. And I
Mhm.
love Goku's carefree attitude to life. But yeah, it's creepy and pervy.
Yeah.
Pretty much constantly, I think.
Constantly.
Like,
That was the thing. If there was like one character that turns up and you're like, okay, this guy's the perv. I don't like it, but whatever. But everyone.
everyone's a perv, yeah. Well, Goku's not.
Goku's not,
Goku's
yeah, I mean, obviously, like he doesn't. He's just a kid. He's just being a kid.
Yeah, that's why he gets the cloud. One thing I love about early Dragon Ball is that, and anime in general, is just like the freewheeling attitude to ideas. Now, I'm now aware as an adult that like, so Dragon Ball is based on Journey to the West, which is an old Eastern fable. And so these elements, the things that pop up in Dragon Ball are familiar tropes to the audience they were intended for. But
Yeah.
obviously, as a teenager experiencing this shit for the first time, I remember just being all like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, the fact that it's the kind of world where there are cars, but there's also some like sci-fi technology, but also there's dinosaurs. And also
Yeah.
Goku appears to live in like medieval times. But then and then there's just like half animal people all the time. Like they're
Yeah.
like the president's a dog. He's like a dog man. And in fact, I think he's the only dog man we ever see in Dragon Ball. Like, is the president, and that's
Yeah.
and
I
like
mean, I didn't get that far. My partner actually told me if I'd have stuck with it, I would have seen. But um, like in between scenes, there's like Goku is doing this like juggling trick with a pig man. I
yeah,
don't know what was
Oolong.
going on there.
Yeah. Oolong's also a big perv, so you wouldn't have enjoyed him, I imagine.
Cool.
Um, in fairness, like I gotta say, like they're all kind of big pervs, but I think that there's a level at which also, like, if we were watching a TV show from anywhere from like 1983, I imagine that there would probably be some stuff. In fairness, we watched Terminator last week, and that was from 1984 and was not particularly problematic. But
Yeah,
there's a reason that Terminator's persisted and most of the media from that time hasn't. Like I
this
mentioned
is
Weird
exactly it.
Science
Yeah,
earlier, but like when I was growing up, there were all kinds of movies on TV that were just, well, like if you think about how frequently when I was a kid, there was a sequence in a movie or TV show where men would spy on women changing, which was just like a constant thing in all TV and movies for the whole time I was growing up. And then only relatively recently did, like, I mean, like when did American Pie come out? In general, I think that most old media has a level of that.
yeah,
So what I like about Dragon Ball, aside from the absolutely insane, like, like I used to love reading manga synopses where it would be like, Jonathan is a tiger, is a half tiger, half man, and he turns into a tiger when he's tickled or frightened. And I'd just be like, what the fuck is that? Like, but I think also one thing I was thinking about recently when I was talking to Logan is that like the era I grew up in for anime was like the fucking Wild West. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like because after Akira hit, there was just like random VHS anime in the shop. And like you might get a light-hearted story about some police officers who have a tank, or you might get a gritty like detective drama, or maybe tentacle porn. And there was just like no sort, and they were all 15. They were all of 15 because the ones that to us seemed relatively childish still had people drinking and smoking and getting their nipples out in them. So they were 15. And then it was all like, yeah, well, it's not a penis, so it's just a tentacle, so 15. And I remember just being like I would just go and buy anime and it would just be, and the thing is that like, I think that young people, like talking to Logan about it, like the idea of a world where I was just purchasing for like £15 movies and TV shows and I had no idea what they were about and no kind of conception whatsoever of what was going to be in them. So like I think Dragon Ball was kind of a known quantity. It was like
yeah.
this is
Well,
the
this is
one.
what I could be wrong, and maybe I just don't see what everyone else is saying. But the thing for me about Dragon Ball is, I think the only thing that could compel me to keep watching it would be to see how it leads to GT and Z and everything else. Because as a standalone piece of media, I don't understand what the appeal is. And that's not an insult to anyone. That's not to dismiss. I know it means a lot to a lot of people. I don't understand it.
I mean, what I would say is that it does not lead to Z in any real meaningful way. Like it continues on like that weird thing that you watched earlier on, and then occasionally it will go into a bit where they all just fight all the time. And from what I can gather, the all just fighting all the time bits were very popular. And then eventually Dragon Ball gets to its end at about 16 volumes, and then it's all like 4 years later, and it's just all fighting all the time. And then suddenly aliens show up, and they're all like, yeah, the world's not so fantasy anymore, it's sci-fi now, and then they just fight all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
my exposure before this, the few clips I had seen, is really buff dudes floating in the sky. One of them
yeah,
powers up, attacks the other, and then after you as an outsider are like, oh wow, that must have killed him. The smoke clears, there's a bunch of debris, and someone's just there like, ha ha ha, did you possibly think you can defeat me? So that's what I know
yes,
is Dragon Ball. So to
yeah.
see these weird hijinks and slapsticks, I was like, what is this?
Well, there's also a lot of you thought you defeated me, but actually I can transform into something else, which
Yeah.
is the Dragon Ball staple, and obviously standing and screaming for a while. In fairness, what I would say is that the clips you see will always be buff dudes fighting, but weird comedy and silly tone does absolutely persist throughout
Yep.
all of Dragon Ball. Like, there will absolutely just be moments where really silly stuff happens all the way through, even during what are supposed to be relatively serious moments. There is a bit around the middle of Z where it gets quite serious for quite a long time, but then he got tired of that, and towards the back half, it gets really silly again. And recent Dragon Ball Super stuff is a lot of the time really, really silly. And then recently they've also kind of gone back to the we're going on an adventure to look for things kind of story arc. Because for a long time the story was a big strong person arrives and they have to fight them. And then they lose, so they have to train, and then they fight them again, and they win. But then the big strong guy has a friend who's even stronger, and so they fight them, and then they lose, and they have to train for a while, and then they fight them again, and they win. And that's like all of Dragon Ball Z, pretty much, and it's a fair bit of Dragon Ball. But recently, it's gone back to the old. Oh, we're going on a hunt for something. Oh, we're off on an adventure. There was a bit where they went into space and met a goat. That was nice. I think that the thing is that when you describe, like, if I describe, have you seen the movie My Neighbor Totoro?
I started watching it. I never finished watching it.
You are like, you've got no soul. That's absolutely fucking insane. Like,
Listen,
Totoro. Studio Ghibli's the anime that's Studio Ghibli's the anime that's palatable for regular people. It's like dire anime.
Make a blanket statement for everyone that loves anime, because I don't think any of you guys understand. Anime is a mistake.
Okay, you understand what you're doing here, don't you? Like, I get to pick what we watch every other week.
Yeah.
So it's all anime now until I find something that you like.
Okay,
I am going to.
Here's the thing, right? I think we'll both be suffering because I think you just are scared to admit to yourself that anime is not good.
No, I think that you are one of those people who's like, oh, I don't really like books because they're too stupid to read more than one book.
I love books. I don't love anime because
but
it's confused and it doesn't know what it is. It thinks it's like superhero stuff or comic books, but it's not. It's just weird media. I don't understand it. I don't want it.
If I had to rank all the comic books I've ever read, my top 50 would be all manga with no American comic books. There is nothing that America has ever produced that touches even mediocre manga.
Watchmen?
Watchmen would probably be like 51, maybe. It'd probably get onto the list. Maybe Sandman. You know what I mean? Like, those kind of things might make it on further down, but they're certainly no Berserk. Not in a million years.
Okay, but I'll have to glance through this Berserk at some point.
I mean, actually, I would not recommend Berserk to anybody as a beginner for two reasons. Number one, it's extremely expensive to read and it's quite hard to pirate. And number two, last year the author died after writing Berserk for 26 years, and it's got no ending. So, yeah, like
the stories have an ending.
No, they don't. Or like the joy of manga is that one person writes it, one person draws it, and then eventually it ends. Rather than
that doesn't sound joyous at all. That does not sound joyous at all.
It does. It's wonderful.
If I want to sit down and just watch and read Watchmen right now, I can do that. If I want to sit down and read The Dark Knight, I can do that. I don't want to keep reading something and watch my children grow alongside it. I just want to read it.
Oh no, I definitely want to watch my children. Like when I started reading One Piece, Logan had just been born.
It's insane.
And he is doing his A levels at the moment. And I am still reading One Piece weekly. This week's chapter looks real good. I'm very excited. And I honestly, apparently it's going to end in the next 5 years, but I wish it wouldn't. And similarly, when after a 12, 13-year hiatus, they were all like, Dragon Ball's coming back, I was like, oh yeah, it fucking is. I am so up for watching more Dragon Ball, and it came back, and it's exactly the same. Nothing has changed. No evolution. No change whatsoever. It's exactly the same thing again, and I love it. Absolutely love it. So, you're crazy, and penises are funny. It's not okay to perv on 16-year-old. Oh, do you know what I love in the first episode of Dragon Ball? Is that she crashes her car when she's driving down the road, and then she whips out a gun and just
And
shoots
tries to kill
Goku in the
him.
back of the head. And then she's all like, oh, you're bulletproof. And it's all like, you were just gonna pop that 12-year-old
Yeah.
kid in the back of the head and then
Yeah.
drive off.
And when she thinks he's going to attack her, she's like, I'm normal, just like you, kid. She refers to him as kid. So she acknowledges the fact she thought it was a kid when she emptied that clip into him.
She was fully happy to murder that child in the countryside, and you know she would have just driven off. It's
100%.
driven away, not even thought about it.
Okay.
Um,
The capsules that contain whatever you need them to contain,
Yes.
are they ever explained? Is the science behind it explained, or is it just a thing that happens in this universe and we're fine with it?
Oh, so the reason Bulma is so rich is because her parents own the company that makes those capsules.
Oh, okay.
They are some sort of sciencey invention, although we're never given any sort of explanation for them.
Cool.
But
because one of them contains a house.
yes, but in the wider reality of Dragon Ball, what becomes clear is that those capsules are fucking incredibly expensive.
Okay.
They are like unbelievably expensive, and Bulma is basically like Jeff Bezos's daughter. And in this world, Jeff Bezos invented those capsules, so she's got a whole fucking packet of them with houses and cars and boats and
What's she need
shit
the Dragon Balls for?
for a boyfriend.
As if Jeff Bezos' daughter couldn't get a boyfriend.
I mean, what happens later is that the Dragon Balls become a catch-all plot device so that nobody ever dies. Every time anybody dies, they're all like, let's just grab the Dragon Balls and wish them back to life. And that maintains, and that allows them to have a tone where they do a lot of fighting. Yeah.
If you assemble all 7 Dragon Balls and make your wish, do they then just disperse and then you have to find them again in new locations?
So they fly up into the air and scatter all around the world, and they turn to stone for 1 year. So for a year you can't make a wish on them, and then they'll turn back into Dragon Balls, and you can use the radar to go and get them again.
Cool.
I mean, later on, as it turns out, there's a giant floating platform in the sky which God lives on, and God actually made the Dragon Balls.
Of course he did.
But then later it turns out that he's not actually God, he's an alien. But there is a God. There is a God, and he's a little fat man who lives on a tiny planet with a talking cricket. But then it turns out that he's got like a boss who's like the senior god, and then it turns out that they've also got a boss who's like a more senior god, until eventually in Dragon Ball Super, Goku meets the king of the multiverse, who has the power to kill billions of people with a wave of his hand and a childlike silly demeanor. Also, when you die in the Dragon Ball world, you go to a processing place. No, when you go to die in Dragon Ball, you go to a processing plant where a big giant guy with horns tells you whether you're going to heaven or hell based on reading a file about your life. And when they go there at one point, so you turn into a soul when you die, which is like a little ball of white energy. And they go there at one point, and there's just a queue of souls queuing up, and they're all like going forward, and he's being all like hell, hell, heaven, hell. And then before they go to heaven or hell, they're stored in a big tank. They like make a big bottle of souls, and then they're all like, right, those ones are going to hell. Which means that later on at one point, there's a part where they accidentally spill the big ball of souls. And so in Dragon Ball Movie 12, a guy who's cleaning up in hell accidentally knocks over a big bottle of souls, and it smashes open. And so all of the previous Dragon Ball Z villains come back to life because their souls are released. And also, Hitler comes back. And then, while Goku is fighting a monster made of evil souls, and his kids are fighting all of the previous villains, his younger kid has to fight Hitler and the Nazi army. I think that Hitler is edited out of the Western version, but you're really missing out there because the Hitler bit's great. It's really good.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay, so I reckon we're about halfway through the podcast, right? So now...
Yeah, I'm actually done with the Dragon Ball portion. You've confirmed all my worst fears about this show, and why I will never watch another minute of it.
Well, we'll think of something else to talk about. But first, it's time for a word from our sponsor. So I know what you're thinking. We don't have a fucking sponsor. And that's true. But what I decided to do is just start making adverts in the hope that sponsors will see them and think, man, imagine if I could have an advert on that podcast as good as that advert. Red.
Okay, I'm going to watch this advert now.
Red. Me? Nah, I don't know what y'all heard, but sit down, I'm gonna spit the word, 'cause I'm serious and bite your lip and pocket. Some Aldi shit is just as good as other supermarkets. I don't know what y'all heard. Sit down, I'm gonna spit the word. I'm serious and bite your lip, just park it. Some Aldi shit is just as good as other supermarkets.
Did you make this?
Let me tell you what I did today. I passed by an Aldi down the way. In my head, I took a pause to say the chorizo sausage sandwich would fucking slay. Grab some cheap butter, that's my base. Need some chorizo, spice up the place. Ran through ingredients, I only got 2.
This is over a minute long.
Fuck, that'll do. I don't know what y'all have heard, but sit down, I'm gonna spit the word, 'cause I'm serious, bite your lip and pockets. Some Aldi shit is just as other supermarkets. Fuck Tesco, fuck Tesco, fuck Tesco, fuck Asda.
There's no door on the Aldi.
Panels and Bars is proud to be sponsored by Aldi. Use code BleachedAnus at checkout for 10% discount.
Who made the beat, Patrick? Aldi, if you don't sponsor us, I don't know what to tell you. Because no one is going to give you that much commitment to your brand.
Did you like it?
My face hurts.
When I finished it last night, I sat there and watched it, and I was all like, maybe this isn't as funny as I think it is. And I watched it back, and I was all like, nah, that's gold. Absolute fucking gold. Everything about it. Yeah, I made that. I had that idea yesterday at about midday, and I finished making it at about 11:30. Obviously, I had to work the afternoon as well, though. So, like, you know. Although, in fairness, I did spend some time when I was supposed to be working making some of it. You know, like. But yes, no, I made the beat myself, and obviously recorded all of the vocals. And created all of the 3D models. Although, in fairness, the 3D models are mostly just like cubes that I mapped photographs onto. And then
Have you heard of Traplaw Ross?
No.
So Traplaw Ross is this. I think he's very talented. He's a divisive figure online, but essentially he's a super middle class white guy that covers a lot of hip hop history. And when he first got sponsorship, his shtick was that he would rap a little segment for the sponsors. And then you can tell over time, they must have become a point where people were like, we'll sponsor you, but you have to do a rap. And so he just doesn't do it anymore. He's be like, yeah, we're sponsored by Squarespace today. Anyway. So
yeah,
that's the trap you set yourself up for if we actually do get sponsorship.
In fairness, what I would say is, like, you know, given that it's the first time I've ever rapped, I think it's okay. I'm going to give it.
I'm just saying that, like, be careful what expectations you set. Because
I did 2 takes of that because the first take halfway through I forgot the words, so then I had to get where I'd written the words on my phone and hold it in front of me. And yeah, I took a bunch of photos of a sausage and a piece of bread and my clothes and my face. Yeah,
I think your face is my favorite part of it.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was
your face while you break down outside the Aldi.
Yeah, and then yeah, I animated and recorded it in Unreal Engine. So that was. Shout out to Mixamo, which is the free animation tool that I use.
I thought that was going to be like your alter ego in the sponsorship segment.
No, well, I thought that because at one point I was all like, you know, what would make this funnier is if I shouted my name, like, you know, because that's what they do. Like when I was doing the meat and bread bit, I was all like, this needs some reverb. I know what I'm looking for, but like, yeah. But then I was all like, well, I don't have a name, and I can't be all like, Paddy. Yeah, I mean, maybe that would be funny if hip hop style, I was all like Patrick Allen, But yeah, like I was
There's,
I was I was pretty pleased with it though.
it's very good. There's a great Childish Gambino song where he gets Tina Fey to do the outro. So she's like shouting like a rapper. She's like, "Yeah, boy, we run this thing." And then she's like, "This is the part where a rapper would get really aggressive and say the N word, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not comfortable with it."
Yeah, have you seen that TikTok clip where the guy's like, I like rapping along to hip hop, but obviously I'm white, so there's a one word that comes up a lot that I can't say. So he was all like, so I just say my name, David, every time they say that word. And he'll be all like, yeah, fuck you, David. That David's a bitch.
So that same guy I told you about, Trap Lil Ross, whenever he has to like quote whether it's the name of a song or something in one of his documentaries, he just says Nigel.
Yeah, yeah. In fact,
Nigel's with attitude.
so like I'm halfway through next week's advert already because I came up with another idea today. But it's not rap based. This one's got a different musical vibe. So yeah, like I'm just gonna make one a week until we get sponsored for real.
Let's do it.
And it'll be very upsetting for the brands should they see it. Although I think I was relatively complimentary to Aldi, right? Like, you know,
yeah. I mean, Tesco caught some stray bullets, but yeah.
fuck Tesco. Yeah, so I don't know. So now I don't know what we should talk about because we haven't. So I'll tell you what. Let's do a longer. What's good? What have you watched this week?
I haven't watched anything. I've just been really sad because I haven't watched anything.
You haven't watched anything.
No. I mean, I've been binging YouTube. That's it, really.
I watched the second season of Is It Cake on Netflix. Which,
I like Is It Cake.
Yeah, I like Is It Cake, but the competitive integrity of Is It Cake was ruined by season 2. I was very upset. So, okay, so you know how they have like a decoy thing and then they have to make a cake that looks like that thing, right?
Yeah.
In season 2, they're allowed to like fuck up or paint the decoy so it looks more like a cake.
Ooh,
So like,
I don't like that.
so like they're just plastering like paint all over it, so it looks like it's not a real torch, and then it becomes impossible to tell which one's the cake because they all look like shit cakes. And I was like, well, this isn't what I'm here for at all. Now, in fairness, the lady who won absolutely did not do that at all. She was all like, I'm not fucking doing that. And she every time made a cake that looked exactly like a real item. And she was English, and I was kind of like, maybe there's like a link here between me being all like, well, that's not very much in keeping with the spirit of the thing, is it? And the only English person on it also doing exactly what I would do.
So it's slightly related, but my mum loves the bake-offs. And she, once I was with her, she was watching the Australian bake-off, and they had, a Is It Cake week where you were supposed to make something very realistic. And we were both so frustrated because like one of them would be like, it's a dragon scale. And then the other would be like, I don't know, I don't even think of what the stuff but it was like, they all missed the point that I wouldn't confuse this cake for an actual cup.
Object,
because they were
yeah.
making things that don't exist in reality. They all did it. It was just the one guy who was good, his thing wasn't in scale.
That's insane. Like, why would you?
Possibly, every single one of them got it wrong. It was bizarre, and it's like, I don't know if the judges themselves didn't know what the trend was, or if they just felt bad and didn't want to correct anyone. But person after person, it was like, no, that's a dragon's egg. There's no way I would believe that's a real thing. It was so frustrating. And the thing was, in the beginning, when they do the little spiel about, oh, this is the thing taken over the internet, they had loads of pictures of the actual trend. So they know what it should be. They know that you're supposed to think that's an iPhone, no, it's cake. Oh, you're supposed to think that's a shoe, no, it's cake. But none of the contestants got it right. It was just...
Yeah, and that's weird because generally Australian cooking shows are better. Like, Beth watches loads of cooking shows. And what I would say is that, like, of all the versions of MasterChef that she's watched, Australian is easily the best by miles and miles. And, like, we watched an Australian thing called My Kitchen Rules, which is also excellent. well, I mean, as far as cooking shows go, obviously, like cooking shows, like the thing which Is It Cake solves is that cooking shows have this fundamental flaw, which is that it's not fun if I can't join in the judging, and I don't know what it tastes like. And obviously, Is It Cake solves that because I can also judge whether they look good. It's why, like X Factor and stuff, singing shows are good because I can also judge whether that person is good at singing, right? But like ones like Come Dine With Me, or like fucking that one where they all run B&Bs and they all stay in each other's B&Bs, and they're all like, the bed was lumpy, and I'm all like, well, I don't fucking know though, do I? Because I wasn't there and I can't even see it. It's stupid. But yeah, like
some kind of comic idol.
There was a series of America's Got Talent where they had. So America's Got Talent often has comedians on it.
No, not stand-up comics, us comics.
Oh,
like, I mean, I think the time's probably passed, but there was a point when, especially when the MCU was so big and suddenly being a nerd became the cool thing, like you would have thought Rob Liefeld or someone would have done something like that, right? Like you try and
I
find
imagine
that superstar and you give pictures every week.
I imagine it takes so long, right? Like it must be because I thought about the idea of a reality kind of show where people make video games, but like it takes years to make a video. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess that maybe it just doesn't translate very well. Because if you think about it
would have to be like a finished, 32-page thing though. But I mean, like, there's a lot of guys who can sketch a convention. So I guess if you're trying to test for that, you could do a Daredevil story, Damsel in Distress story. Like, I don't know. I just don't know why someone's not done it. I feel like that's money in the bank.
Or at the very least, like a painting one or a drawing one. You know what I mean? Like,
my mum does watch
Watercolor Challenge.
Which is that? But it's like, I'm not sure if it's the Great British Portrait, but there is a portrait series. But obviously, it's more traditional forms of art. And I just think it's weird to no one from the comic book medium has tried to use how over MCU is and stuff right now to try and draw an audience back to the comics. And I think like a reality TV show would be the way to do that.
In fact, I think that my idea that I misunderstood though, I think a stand-up comedian one would be really good.
That would be really good.
In fairness, when we watched the season of America's Got Talent, and they had a stand-up comedian on, and they got all the way through to like the top 6 or something. And he was an Asian guy, and his name was Osama. And early on, he made some jokes about like, tough name to have in America, but he stayed pretty clean. And then he got to the top 6, and he went up to the thing, and he just went in hard 9/11 jokes. And it was just, and he was stood there in front of like Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum and stuff, top 6, being all like, yeah, it's real tough when you're late for your plane and you look like this and your name's Osama. You're running through the airport with your bag on your back. Your mate sees you and he's all like, Osama, I haven't seen you since September. And it's just, and the judges just sat there like stone-faced for the whole thing. And at the end, they were all like, I think you've really misjudged this. But honestly, I was like crying with laughter. Like Chappelle Show crying with laughter. Yeah. Like I just could not breathe because I thought it was so funny, and they just got kicked right out. There was also another great one where we watched there was this guy on America's Got Talent, right, and he was like a daredevil. He was all like, oh, I'm gonna set myself on fire, I'm handcuffed to a pole and there's flames coming and an axe that's gonna fall on my head if I don't untie myself quickly enough, like a kind of escape artist thing. He was a twat, proper twat, seemed like a total knob. And then towards the end I was all like, I wonder if that guy ever like managed to do anything. I wonder what happened to that guy. And Logan Googled him, and it was all like, yeah, he got paralyzed by being crushed between 2 cars. And I was all like, oh shit! Like, but in fairness, where you live a life where your job is, I'm going to nearly die. I guess eventually you probably actually die, don't you? Yeah. Like, that's fucking insane.
So the other thing that next issue, so very niche, but I'm very big into battle rap. And
yeah, that'd make a great reality show.
Yeah, so actually it wouldn't. Eminem did it once, and it turns out that like a lot of rappers are just bitches. Like, so one of the things about battle rap, right, that I've always actually loved is that there is a WWE level of commitment to the facade. So a lot of these guys hang out outside of this, and when they're not battling each other, they give each other tips online and blah blah blah. when you're there, you're in each other's face, and like your friends have to hold you back and all that stuff. So there's this big artifice, and it's fun to watch, right? The reality TV show kind of ruined that, because when they're in the house together, they were all just like bitching about stuff and never fighting. It was that thing of like, hold me back, just constantly. So whatever. But so battle rap for the longest time. So I'm going to give everyone a quick history lesson. Battle rap as it kind of exists now, basically the British people invented that. Like before we invented this new era of battle rap, it was actually the Americans, obviously, and it was like 8 Mile, a very good representation of how things used to be in the 90s to like late 90s. And then the Brits came up, London specifically, came up with this event called Jump Off. And Jump Off birthed loads of amazing superstars like Professor Green, loads of people who went on to get record deals and become very successful. And that format was mainly a cappella, really close stage with an audience. And then the Americans took that and adopted it. And there were several leagues. Now, for the longest, like maybe I think like past decade or so, there's been one league, the URL, and the URL's kind of dominated everything. It's run by a guy called Smack, and he has done such a good job of the marketing.
It's an unfortunate name, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, but
I know it means something different in America, but damn.
Like, yeah, I mean, it means they use it over there as well too. But like he like has done such a good job of getting into the mainstream. He's had events co-hosted by Drake, and like even though he's the worst person in the world, Chris Brown hosted an event one. You know, that's good for some businesses. So he's really brought it over to the mainstream. Now, for the longest time, he has a competitor, a guy called ARP, has a league called RBE, and so it's given it this kind of WCW, WWE excitement for the first time in a long time. And it just means the fans are the recipients of that, because these leagues are trying to outdo each other by having bigger and better stars, bigger and better productions. They're just trying to outdo each other. And it means the rappers are also stepping up their game. So there was like the past few years, especially after COVID, coming back from like, you know, they weren't able to host events and stuff. It's been very boring to be a fan of battle rap. But now recently, there's just this kind of buzz in the air. And in particular, there's a guy called Big K. If you see Big K is the last person on earth that you would guess is a battle rapper, because he's this very southern white guy, big ginger beard. He just looks like, you know, he should be in a farm or something. And, you know, when he first came out, everyone used to call him Hillbilly and all this stuff. And I was always kind of like, fine. Like he's a talented rapper, but I was just kind of felt like he didn't do anything special. And like at the start of this year, someone just lit a fire up under him, and he has been destroying people, like just humiliating people. And he feeds into what I was saying that I love, that like if it becomes, you know, if it's Big K versus Patrick, for the course of when it's announced into when you guys battle, he goes into full WWE mode. He's tweeting about you and how you're a piece of shit and he hates you. When you're battling, he's in your face and he talks in between your rounds. Like, so he battled this guy called A-Ward. And A-Ward is one of the most talented guys in the scene right now. He's a Christian rapper. And they battled. And in between his verses, Big K told A-Ward, "You suck dick at life." And he was just like in his face. He was like, "You're trash, you're garbage, don't ever look at me." The minute it was finished, shook hands. And this is the funny thing, like when you're finished, he'll be a sportsman. He's like, "Well done." And you can even hear him saying, "I loved your verse. Oh my God, you nearly got me." But when he's in battle mode, he's just a demon. And he just, like I said, he's just been on this crazy run. He's had like an average of about a month. And you consider how insane that is to like write 3 verses from scratch, memorize them, get your performance down. And he's doing this all over the States and Canada and sometimes over here. So yeah, it's just a really fun time to be a battle rap fan.
Nice. That's really cool. Do you watch wrestling? Is Roman Reigns still the champion?
He is. So basically, Roman Reigns is on track to break the longest standing record for longest WWE champion, which is over 1,000 days.
Who's the record holder?
I can't remember. I used to think it was
Hulk. Oh, it's John Cena, isn't it? It's John Cena.
No, it's not John Cena. It's not John Cena.
Is it
longest WWE champion holder?
I think it's John Cena.
It's nowhere near John Cena. It's like a really old school Bruno Sammartino. That's who it is.
I've never heard of that motherfucker.
So it's the current reign is 2,803 days.
Man,
Yeah,
I bet he's no
and like I
Stone
said-
Cold Steve Austin, though, is he?
And like I said, Reigns has just surpassed 1,000 days, and so it's very obvious they are trying to get him to break the record. But the problem is, this is also a man who is recovering from leukemia and chemo, all those things. So it's kind of amazing that he's held the record for 1,000 days. But he barely shows up nowadays. And so what they've done in the meantime is they've created a secondary title which they've put on Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins is just a great entertainer. Like, he has this very catchy theme tune. And when he comes out, entire stadiums sing it. And he comes out wearing sunglasses and big fluffy jackets, and he's very flamboyant. So they've given him a title so that someone is constantly defending a title. But because obviously Reigns still has his belt, the downside with Rollins is it just comes across as like a secondary title. It doesn't have that same impact that a world title should have. But it's very fun to watch right now. Like, what it kind of tying into what I was just talking about, you now have AEW, who are nowhere near the level of WWE, right? But they do have very good storylines, very good competitors. And what they're doing is they're poaching a lot of WWE staff who were maybe neglected story-wise or just weren't really given a push. So you've now got some of these classic, like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time in my top 3 is a guy called Sting. And Sting used to be in WWE.
I remember Sting.
Yeah, so
he's
Sting
got
used to be in
Kiss
WWE.
makeup on, right?
He does, yeah. He's basically the Crow, exactly. And when he went to WWE, they treated him really badly. He was then injured really badly, nearly career-ending. AEW's got him. He's like in his 50s now, but they're giving him amazing storylines and letting him do really cool things. So he's had this renaissance, and lots of people are realizing, if I go to AEW, I can get the push WWE never gave me. And so you've now this really nice mix of talent on both sides. And what it means is they're both having to step their game up. There was a time a couple of years back when AEW was winning the ratings war. They went against each other. And when it first happened, everyone was like, AEW, what are you doing? You're a brand new company. Why would you do this? And then they won the ratings war. Try to say that 5 times fast. But yeah, so it's a really fun time to be a wrestling fan. I mean, that's just if you're into the American companies. You've got New Japan, who
I hear a lot of good things about Japanese wrestling.
New Japan. So here's the thing: when you talk about the best wrestling companies in the world, it's either going to be, when most people are saying it's either going to be Team WWE or AEW, they kind of like fluctuate like that. 1 week it might be AEW, next week it might be WWE. But keep in mind, whilst they're fluctuating like that, New Japan is like that constantly. New Japan is just insane. You know, King from Tekken.
Yeah.
He's literally been in New Japan, and in any other league in the world, that would be a very corny like game tie-in. That's one of the best matches of all time. That's like the level that New Japan is at.
That sounds great. I've got a fun wrestling fact, actually. You know Stone Cold's catchphrases, both 316 and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
Yeah.
You know, they were 2 of the WWE's highest earning merchandise catchphrases of all time. And he ad-libbed them both at the same event. Yeah. He went out there one day and made both those things up off the top of his fucking head and then made millions in merchandise from them.
Yeah.
I also really love all Stone Cold's...
So Jake the Snake was who Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestled in that event. And Jake the Snake's thing was he was a Christian. So he used to quote Bible verses. And when he had fought Stone Cold, he was like, well, I would turn to John 16, and Austin said, well, Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. Like, to have that kind of speed is insane. And that was one of his first years in that character. Like, he only got better from there. There's a guy at the moment actually called LA Knight who's in WWE. And LA Knight is amazing because he's in his mid-40s. He's been in the business for a long time. And he was bounced back and forth from like division to division. And so when he had this run, he kind of looked in the mirror and said, if you don't make it this time, that's it. You gave it your best shot. And so he actually went to the top brass and he was like, look, I'm asking for a run. And let's just say this, give me 3 months. And if I don't connect with the fans in 3 months, we'll both call it quits. I'll happily walk away. And they said, all right, cool. Within 3 months, he became the number one and number two merchandise wrestler in the company,
Nice.
and still is. And he has this thing. His character is a bit of a mix of both Stone Cold and The Rock, but fans love him to the point now where like there's certain clips where you can't hear the commentators talking because the crowd is screaming so loudly. He just has people in the palm of his hands, and they've really put him in a program with John Cena. That's another interesting thing at the moment as well, because the writer's strike. John Cena and The Rock couldn't be in movies, so they just came back to WWE.
Well, that's fun. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's really nice. Yeah.
And
I feel
Go on,
like one thing that's interesting about WWE is the level of like I don't know, like the level of loyalty that they have. Like so, like I don't know if I haven't watched it, but you know, Neighbours is back. So Neighbours finished,
Barnes,
and then and then Amazon bought it back. And like when they filmed the final episode of Neighbours, a bunch of the people who'd gotten famous from Neighbours, like Kylie Minogue and stuff, came back to do
Guy
the final
Pearce.
episode. And Guy Pearce came back.
I watched it.
Yeah, and so Guy Pearce came back, and then apparently in the new season of Neighbours, Guy Pearce, you know, obviously isn't coming back to be in fucking Neighbours permanently. He's a Hollywood movie star, so like he spends a lot of time on FaceTime in the first couple of episodes, well, so they can explain why he's not there. But he came back for a bit, yeah. But like,
Nice.
but I feel like
thought
there's
it was
that level.
Goodbye, Home Planet needs me.
But I feel like there's like that level at which with like TV actors who become movie stars, they never go back really. Do you know what I mean? They might do a cameo, but they're never like there's this shame to it. But like wrestlers who go on to do other things always are willing to go back to the WWE to do some shit for a couple of days. And it's just I think it's so cool like how much they obviously love it. I also wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry, carry on. No,
there's a sadness I get with The Rock, right? Where The Rock's whole character, the thing that really made him over, is that he's kind of an unbearable douchebag when he's The Rock. And the problem now is that Dwayne Johnson's obviously the nicest person in showbiz. And so he has to be careful because there's people that don't really get wrestling who, if he acts like The Rock, will be like, why is Dwayne Johnson being so mean to people? So it means
why is he being so rude?
Yeah. So it means his character is kind of affected when he goes back now because he's not really The Rock, he's Dwayne. And I love seeing him in the ring every time. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. But there was something just to be said for when he would just come out and just be the worst. I love that.
Okay, so I have two questions to ask you. Number one, what does it say on your t-shirt? I can't see because of your MSN Messenger camera.
Oh, it's a company called A-Life, who are a really cool streetwear company. Unfortunately, they got hit really bad by the pandemic and not having people coming into their physical locations. So they've had to close one of the locations. And what was really cool about that location is it wasn't just a streetwear store. It was where people like Drake had some of their first performances. DMX had one of his last performances before passing away. So it was a real kind of time capsule for New York hip hop. And unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore.
I genuinely thought
going, but as a store, they're gone.
I genuinely thought your t-shirt just said knife on it, and I was all like, "That's a weird thing to have, isn't it? Just like a big knife t-shirt." So that
people would buy it though.
Yeah, probably. That leads me on to my second question because you've mentioned him twice now. So, do you like Drake?
I like Drake a lot. I completely understand why people don't like Drake, and there's many reasons why I can kind of see why you wouldn't like Drake. But I think first of all, on the skill level, he's just a very talented rapper. He's a very
is he though?
He is.
Is he though? Like,
the problem is,
I feel like
safe.
I feel like Drake is a practical joke that the world is playing on me. I feel like Drake is
a very talented rapper. He's just so here's the thing, right? And there's a reason why a lot of people don't like him, which I completely understand. But I like him. He's really weird. Like as a person, he's a weird guy. And I'm very attracted to people that he's weird. Like, I don't think he acts like normal people do. And I quite like that about him.
Like, I heard him on, he's on, Forever's his track, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, just the balls to go out there and do a track with those other people is absolutely wild when you're as mid as he is. It's so funny listening to him, like alongside, like, because I'm not a big Lil Wayne fan, but I do see why people like. I get that. That makes sense to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's clearly extremely talented. I do think that when I hear that track, I'm always all like, man, like Kanye, Lil Wayne, Drake, all like modern titans, and Eminem just crushes them. Absolutely destroys them.
I think that song is collectively all of their worst songs. Like if I had to pick the worst song out of all their catalogs, it would be Forever.
Oh no, Eminem, like Eminem's bit on that's great.
Probably like Fack or something like that. But you know, Forever's not a great track. But Drake has a great track. I mean, he's got many tracks. But Drake has a great track called Worst Behavior. Listen to that because he's rapping his backside off on that, and he's.
I would like it if you sent me some Drake recommendations so I can give it a go.
Yeah, make it. Because
I mean, like,
playlist.
I've been listening to a lot of hip hop recently, but I've been listening to Dead Prez and Nas, and like you know, I mean, I've been listening to a lot. Of...
Drake is not lyricist of the year, right? He's not the greatest of all time, but a thing that a lot of people like to dismiss him for is that he makes pop music and he's not lyrical. It's like he can be. If I had any criticism of him, it's that he's so good at making pop music, he doesn't try to do anything deeper than that. But when you put him in like a lyrical sphere, like yeah, he can spit. He's a very talented guy.
Send me some recommendations. I'll listen to them this week and we'll talk about them next week. I tell you what else I've been listening to is both of Proof's albums. God damn, he was amazing, right? It's just so depressing. Like it feels like when you listen to them back to back,
it's so weird that you mentioned that because I just the other day was very tempted to reread this. This is Eminem's autobiography, and it's great. And it opens with him talking about Proof. I think it was published very soon after Proof's death, and it's just like, you know me, I'm a pit of no feelings or emotions, but reading his thoughts about Proof, it's like a gut punch. Like he was like, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything, and then like when he started to process it, that his first thought was, have you ever seen the video for Toy Soldiers? So for anyone that hasn't seen that, Proof is killed in that music video. So then Eminem started blaming himself. He's like, did I manifest this? Did I make this happen? Like, it's horrible. It's only like 4 pages long, but he just basically he's like, I lost a limb. I'll never get over that. It's a part of me I'll always feel pain about.
And when you listen to them back to back, his albums, it's like he's just getting to. It's like he's just spinning up into something unbelievable, and then it just ends, and there's nothing more. It's so miserable.
If you're even a passing fan of Eminem, I highly recommend this book. It's amazing. It's like filled with illustrations, and like one cool thing. I'm actually going to make a video about it for our channel.
I like that you keep on holding up. I like that you keep on holding up the book, and it looks to me like, you know, when you find like a fucking JPEG that you saved in like 1997, and then you open it on a modern screen, and it tries to size it to the screen, and it's just pixels.
Basically, so I don't know if you can see the scribbles, but essentially he has this, and he does this to this day. I think when he first started rapping, someone stole his rap book, and then like not long after he heard someone else rapping his raps. So he came up with this insane kind of cipher where he just carries this huge stack of scraps of paper, and he'll write like the first half of a verse on one paper, and then 17 scraps later, he writes the other half, and then he fills the paper with all these different scraps of all these different verses. So if you I found it, it would just look like the ramblings of a madman. We'd never be able to decipher it. But he just intuitively knows, oh, that's page 1, and I wrote that to go with page 17, and that's page 3, and that goes with page 12. So that's how
or I guess you just flick through, and you're all like, oh yeah, that's the second half of that one, right? Like you remember because you wrote it,
like, exactly, yeah. But you and I would be like, what? This person needs help, and he's just done it ever since. He's like, I've lost albums, no one's ever figured it out, so it works for me. So I just do that.
That's so cool. So cool. I how is that book hardback? It looks big from what I can see of it.
It is, it is. It's insane. I don't know how much you could get it for now. Does it say how much it paid?
Daniel calling in direct from 2001 here.
It says it contains a DVD. I don't think I have a DVD. Oh, if I did, I must have lost it. That sucks.
Talking to Logan about the past as well. Like I was saying to him that like, the first time I had downloaded an episode of Dragon Ball Z, it was in this kind of quality, and it took me like 2 days to download it. I just had to leave LimeWire on for 2 days, and then eventually I got it, and it was like a real player video that was like a fucking postage stamp in the middle of the screen, like that big. It was fucking ridiculous. Those
Matrix Minute.
You got Matrix thoughts? I haven't got any Matrix thoughts.
Matrix Minute. So, I read a stat the other day that Keanu Reeves' dialogue in the first 40 minutes of the film average out at him asking a question every 2 minutes. And I think that's fantastic. Because if you told me that about any other film, I'd be like, that sounds like horrible, terrible dialogue. But in The Matrix, it's so efficient.
I'm on strike from Matrix Minute because you edited our Matrix Minute out of the last episode. So my interesting Matrix fact. No, also, I got a fucking bone to pick with you, man. Every week, you're all like, so what's really good? And I've only just started listening to the podcast because I was super embarrassed and I thought it was really cringy. But like, I was saying to Chris the other day, like, you know, it's, you got to sit on the bag of ice, watch the game tape, right? You want to get better, you got to see what you're doing. So I've started listening to the podcast, and you edit that shit out every week. Every fucking week. Okay. You're all like, so what have you watched this week?
Thank you for bringing it up. For anyone, and great segue, for anyone who also wants more of this podcast, it's available on Spotify where you can listen to the entire thing. So that's one thing. The second thing is, dude, we speak for like 2 hours. It's so hard to get all of that on YouTube. It really is.
Okay, what I want you to do is take all of the what's really goods and put them into one YouTube video, so that we can, cool. so that all that gold is not hidden from our massive YouTube audience
on Spotify. So, but
but nobody's, really good. No one's using Spotify. Like, I only started listening to our podcast after you put it on fucking YouTube, man. Like, you know, when I'm listening to, when I put Spotify on, I'm listening to fucking music. I'm not listening to a podcast. But when you put it on YouTube, when I'm at my computer on YouTube, it's podcast time, right? That's where I consume all my podcasts. So I need more content on the YouTube channel.
Okay, well,
please.
So I'm going to include this week's what's really good, especially because this episode is only like 10 minutes
we've only got half an episode.
So in the comments, let me know if you'd like us to include what's really good in the actual episode. And I will do going forward. But I think part of it is like also I title and make the thumbnails based on the core of what we're talking about. So I think if you're new to the show and, you know, we're supposed to be about One Piece or Dragon Ball or Heartbreakers, you might be like, why are they talking about this? This has got nothing to do with the rest of the episode. So, but
I think a lot of our best material is in what's really good. Also,
100%.
Also, I anticipate you're going to get a lot of comments this week from different accounts. Atrick Palin says, I think that what's really good was great and they should have it more. That guy on the right sure is hot. Just as a side note, we watched the last episode of Only Murders in the Building season 3 came out today, and it is fucking great. It's so good. Like the fact, like Selena Gomez is a great actor. So good. Like the fact that she's stood there with Martin Short and Steve Martin and she is like just as funny as they are is wild to me. Do you know what I mean? Like her comic timing is gold. It's so funny. It's really it's like and Jane Lynch is in it. Not loads, but man, whenever she's in it, she's so funny. But yeah, I would recommend it. It's one of those TV shows that because it's kind of mystery based, you can't really talk about it that much. But the dynamics, like the interpersonal dynamics, are great, and it's brilliant. It's on Disney Plus, where I watch everything now. Apparently, maybe I should do a Disney Plus advert.
I have everything, and I haven't watched anything on Prime for ages. I haven't watched anything on Disney Plus. I'm trying to find Bottoms. I don't think it's officially out in the UK. When I find Bottoms, I'll cover that next week. It's really funny.
But yeah, I think that what we're gonna, I think that maybe I'll make a Disney Plus advert. Although Disney, they're a bit dodgy, aren't they? They're
yeah, but I mean,
real.
I'll be honest with you. I'll take some Disney money right now. I'll take some Disney money.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yes. So next week we are going to watch Lupin the Third in the Castle of Cagliostro. You ready for that?
I guess. I mean, I brought this on myself by saying how much I hate anime, but
it's fantastic. You'll love it. I promise. I'll send you the title so that you don't forget.
His head is weird. His head is weird looking.
Are you looking at it now?
I've seen Lupin before. I know what he looks like.
Oh yeah. His head is weird.
He's got the red suit and the blue jacket, red shirt and red jacket.
Well, actually, what's interesting is that his jacket changes color over the years that Lupin's been on. So every different like era of Lupin, he's wearing a different colored jacket, and they refer to them. The fan base will be all like, "Yeah, that was one of my favorite blue jacket moments." because like they divide it up into what color jacket he was wearing. But yeah, we're gonna watch. We're gonna watch the Castle of Cagliostro, and you are gonna love it. And then you're gonna be all like,
so we might
"I
even
was
have
wrong
a
about
special guest
anime."
star. We might have a special guest star next week because my partner Adriana really actually wanted to be on this episode because she loves Dragon Ball, and I think she wanted to fight Dragon Ball's corner. So I'll maybe watch Lupin with her, and she can join us.
Yes, that'd be great. Yeah, have you got the microphones and stuff for that?
I'll sort it
Like,
out.
seems to me like you're not great at getting one microphone and camera to work.
you.
Can we just invite people we know to be on it? Maybe I should get fucking Chris or something. Izzy said she was listening the other
100%.
day.
Yeah,
Izzy
Chris
said
will
she was
welcome.
listening. Although I don't think Izzy. If you're listening, Izzy, hi. But I don't think she'll want to. And obviously Beth's not
No.
willing. Beth doesn't watch any of this stuff with me at all. I don't
I
think
think it'd be
anything.
quite cool for us to do an episode where we talk to people that have no idea what we're talking about, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think though that like it would like I don't think that there's I when me and Beth first met, she had watched very few films. She grew up watching a lot of TV and she reads a lot, but she doesn't like movies because she likes longer form narratives. And I was like, that's crazy. Let's watch loads of my favorite films. And like we watched some of them and she didn't enjoy them. We watched some and she did. Like the really big ones like RoboCop, Terminator, she was Alien. She wasn't horrible about, although they weren't like her favorite things in the world. But like I don't think I've ever experienced as crushing a feeling as when we finished watching Raiders of the Lost Ark and she turned to me and was all like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever fucking seen." I was like, "What? Like it's Raiders of the Lost Ark?" And she was just all like, "I cannot believe that you watch that and enjoy it." And I was all like, "Oh my god!" But like,
Oh, some bits out there. So my little sister Deanna listens to this. Hey, D, if you ever want to join us, Patrick is actually going to give me his Switch at some point, so I might start playing Switch games. You know, maybe
yeah,
just play Animal Crossing, and you can, chip in on that. My sister
does
loves.
she play Animal Crossing? I
She
bet she
loves
doesn't
it.
love
She's
it.
really
I bet
good
she
at
doesn't love it as much as me.
Okay,
Oh.
well, you can get her in.
What I
She's
found really
good, dog.
What I found really funny was when Animal Crossing came out and everyone was all like, "Yeah, it's really relaxing, isn't it?" And I was all like, "Yeah, maybe for some people." Like, I am absolutely playing Animal Crossing like I'm going to be the richest and I'm going to have the most stuff. People would be coming to my island and they'd be all like, "Oh, have you built a nice thing?" And I'd be all like, "Look at my art gallery. I've got all the paintings, all of them." I've got so many spare. Like, the paintings are unbelievably rare. It's been out for like several years, and a lot of people I know still haven't got all the paintings for their art gallery. And I had like 3 full sets of paintings, 1 in my art gallery and 2 just in my house within like 2 weeks of the game coming out. I was all like, I'm going to trade with strangers on Reddit.
I'm the best at being relaxed.
I'm the greatest at Animal Crossing. I will win. Yeah, my island's a thing of genuine beauty. It's fantastic.
Well, I'll see it when I get my Switch.
Yeah, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to what was probably billed as Dragon Ball, but was 10 minutes of Dragon Ball, and the rest of us just talking. But that's why you tune in. You love us. Once again, thank you to everyone who has been subscribing. Like, it's amazing. I honestly, I'm so happy that even 100 people listen to us. Like, every single one of you is appreciated. We love the people that comment. Yeah, give us suggestions what you want to see us talk about in the future. We will cover it. Yeah, like, subscribe, send to all your friends. I'm going to do some Black History Month stuff this month. Because in this country, Black people get the same month as Halloween. But yeah, I'm going to do that. It will be fun stuff. I think you should check out movies, comic books from Black creators and Black stars. And yeah, hopefully you'll just open the repertoire of things that you're into and you can enjoy more stuff from us. So yeah, we'll see you same time next week. Patrick, anything you want to say?
Yeah, just quickly, what I would like to say is that's a wild promise to make. I'm absolutely not watching shit that people in the comments recommend. That's fuck that. What the fuck are you talking about?
We'll consider it.
Consider it, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe like maybe if Patrick Pallen's up there, being all like, "You should watch Neon Genesis Evangelion."
We actually do need
Mr.
to watch
Snrubs and
seasons at some point.
Mr. Snrubs in the fucking comments. But yeah, no, like and subscribe. I'm not going to threaten to hurt myself this week. I feel like I've played that bit out now. My new bit is recording fake adverts, so the hurting myself bit is over now.
Cool.
But you should like and subscribe, otherwise I'll cry.
See you next year. Peace.
Bye.